All right, everyone. It is the 25th of June, 2020, and we are here at a special called session of the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government Mayor and Commission. We have two items on the agenda tonight, which we'll describe in detail in just a couple of minutes. The agenda is available at www.accgov.com/agendas. Comments for items on this agenda were received through our portal, and so all commissioners, myself, and the management team has those in our possession. I'm going to go ahead and ask the clerk to call roll.
Davenport.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Blink.
Here.
Wright.
Present.
Denson.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Harrod.
Present.
Thornton.
Present.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate that. All right. The first item of business is TSPLOST 2018, project number 9, subproject number 2. And this is a pedestrian safety improvement at College Avenue and Broad Street. So for the public who are viewing tonight, this would do two things. This would widen the crosswalk across Broad Street toward the end of College Avenue, approaching the arch. And as part of that project, move the obelisk that is there to the only Civil War battle site that is in Clarke County at the Battle of Barber Creek off of Timothy Road, off Macon Highway toward the end of Timothy Road. What we have not done yet is put together whatever the interpretive package would be around that obelisk when it moves to the new site. So I just want to let everybody know that that is to be determined, but I have been in touch with some people who do contemporary interpretation of Confederate era monuments. So the work will begin on that in the coming fiscal year. The other thing that this would do is provide a temporary 6-month closure of the block of College Avenue, commonly called College Square, between Clayton Street and Broad Street. In the midst of this pandemic, of course, outdoor dining is a much safer avenue for folks to gather in. And so this would provide functional and aesthetic improvements for that block. And in that 6-month period, staff would be evaluating the effectiveness of that design for potentially moving forward with permanence. But that would be a future decision of this body. So with that, certainly be open for any questions or input from members of the commission. Looking, and I see Commissioner Wright.
So I wanted to make sure that was the finances for the preparing the other site within this allocation.
That there are some dollars for placing the obelisk at the new site.
Okay. And then I'll yield to Melissa. I didn't mean to have my hand up before her.
All right, Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how to raise my hand on this particular app. But yeah, I just want to thank Commissioner Wright. We had some conversation, and we would like to present a CDO that allocates $50,000 in this project towards the incorporation of a rainbow crosswalk in the College Square vicinity. And the details of that can be worked out as the project progresses. But we just want to make sure that we present that request for that allocation so we can move forward with that public art project.
And so that would bring the total project cost to $500,000.
I'll second the motion for, was that a motion, Melissa?
Yes, I'll present a motion for that.
Okay, and so then I'll second the commission defined option being added to item number 1, which is option 1, A, B, C, D. And I just wanted to add too that as we work forward with legislative review, we're working on the non-discrimination ordinance, and we didn't meet this month, but that is the only topic that we have on our agenda to keep moving forward. And hopefully by the time the new asphalt in the area is ready at College Square, that we will also have that ordinance well underway. That's our hope.
Thanks, Commissioner. I wanted to turn it over for a couple comments from Manager Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to clarify. Staff would recommend that the $50,000 come from, as a funding source, the TSPLOST 2018 project number 9. We have not yet received, I should say, the guaranteed maximum price figure from the contractors for Clayton. If it is for whatever reason over, then we can always come back to the general fund contingency and supplement that. But assuming that will come in under budget, I would recommend the TSPLOST funding for the extra $50,000. And we will certainly go back to the oversight committee and make sure that was okay with them as far as part of the concept.
Great. All right. So everybody understands that additional $50,000 for the public art associated with this project would come from that funding source from TSPLOST 2018. All right. Additional input. Commissioner Parker?
Thank you, Mayor Gertz. I am excited about this. It's been a long time coming, and especially with the time it may take for installation, hoping that we can get the non-discrimination ordinance in place, because it's really important for us to pair symbolic gestures of support like this with substantive policy that actually support communities like these. And just remind the Commission how important it is to center queer voices and LGBTQ folks in the work that we do. I mean, recently, we on May 31st had a significant portion of nonviolent queer folks downtown who were assaulted by our police force. We have a queer woman of color and a queer trans man standing on the steps of City Hall tonight advocating for divestment from police. And so if we're really serious about bringing their concerns to the forefront and honoring, the history of Pride as a celebration, as a pushback against oppressive forces in, the community of Greenwood Village and the work that we're still doing here in Athens, it means a lot more than putting some paint down on a crosswalk. And I hope that in addition to the Indio, we'll continue to push forward ways of supporting this community and genuinely listening to this community when we express what we'd like to see different happen here in Athens. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Thornton?
I'm sorry. I did talk with. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Link and Commissioner Wright for bringing this forward. And I'm kind of torn because I do have issues about the statue being moved. But I know these kind of went hand in hand. So I want to be clear. I don't think moving a statue erases racist hearts. It's part of the history. I would have rather seen a large chunk of this money go to building things of a meaningful. I would have loved to see a statue of Dr. Ray McNair, Reverend Killian. But I think this is a start. And it is actually it's actually the first step, because in our Black Lives Matters resolution, we're going to be requesting something very similar, either on Hull or Washington. So I hope that I have the support of this commission and the community as we're supporting this. So thank you. Like I said, I'm kind of torn with this vote, and but I know this is how government and compromise works.
Any further input? Commissioner Dentzer?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, just to build on Commissioner Thornton's comments there a little bit. So if I'm understanding this right, the funding, the additional $50,000 would be coming from the Clayton Street art project, and not the. I know that we can have on 1% of budgets go towards arts and such. Is it still possible for us in the College Square intersection proposal that we could somehow be able to use some funding to do something kind of like what Commissioner Thornton is saying, that could kind of be built in the place of where the obelisk is, maybe something that's something that's flat, that would not be a danger to transportation and driving, but be able to have at least the potential to have some funding set aside that we could have maybe some memorials that are actually like on the ground, built in, some kind of like walk of justice or something that's there in that place. Is there still the possibility for us to have some of that 1% funding for this project go to something like that?
And just to be clear, Commissioner, the 1% is always our starting place. Obviously, there are those SPLOST or T-SPLOST projects that don't receive any public art funds. Firefighter apparatus would be a good example of a capital expenditure that we don't devote public art to. For those items like this that do have public prominence, we start at 1%, but this body absolutely can allocate more to that. So I think what you're suggesting is a possibility. One of the logistical pieces around this intersection is, I think, as you just noted, having a low profile, just so that there's a view shed for pedestrians and motorists from every angle. But I think the kind of sort of low element that you provide could be a prospect. Manager Williams?
Well, if I might, so from a pedestrian safety standpoint, I think that those types of things, we could check and see. From an art standpoint, certainly, Commissioner Denson, if I could speak for the traffic engineers, and I'm not one, but we've had this conversation, we really don't want anything that's going to cause people to stop in the middle of the road and congregate. And so we would rather have those move somewhere else, perhaps the new park that's being worked on downtown. If College Square becomes permanent, places for pedestrians, we really want people to cross the road and move on, if that's okay.
Yeah, I understand those points, and but I guess just want to make sure that the conversation that Commissioner Thornton's brought up is something that we're continuing to build on, because I definitely agree with her that I would love for us to not just be taking something down, but actually building something up. I think that's a good point. I appreciate that input.
Commissioner Edwards?
I look forward to supporting this proposal. I believe the opening up of College Square to pedestrians is one of the most consequential, beneficial public infrastructure projects this body has taken up in some time. And I know that there are many Athenians that are very happy to see the development of this square into a proper town square. I've spoken to business owners in the surrounding area. They're excited to see how this pilot goes for the next 6 months, and I'm very happy to support this proposal and thank everybody for working to move this forward. Thank you.
Any other further input on this item?
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve, please, sir.
And I think we had the motion from. Did we have the motion already from Commissioner Link? I apologize.
Yeah, and then I seconded it for the actual proposal, but plus adding the crosswalk into the public art design and functionality if we need the crosswalk.
Okay, everybody clear on that? All right. Go ahead. I have a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, motion carries, and we are moving forward post haste. All right. Second item of the evening is adoption of the fiscal year 2021 operating and capital budgets. I'll say by means of introduction, I very much appreciate the public at large providing their input, all those staff members who contributed many, many hours to this, and all the commissioners who are on the screen, as well as our colleague, Commissioner Neesmith, who is no longer with us. All of you really did integrally contribute to what I think are a set of expenditures that embody the principles of justice and health and safety, and moving this community forward in a positive way. I've said to many people, the budget sometimes I think in the layperson's mind is thought of as this ship of state that sails from the dock and you don't see it again for a year. But in fact, the budget is more like a fleet. You've got some yachts and some dinghies and some rubber rafts with little spots for koozies in them, and so we're really always working on the budget, although we approve this large projected expenditure. I do want to let everybody on this call and in the public know as well that pertinent to that ongoing work, we're going to be meeting in early September to do some refinement and then some additional goal setting. So nothing that is at the fore of anybody's mind right now is going to be on the back burner at all. Before summer's end, we're going to be continuing to work on some of the goals and some of the particular expenditures that we will be advancing here tonight. So I see Commissioner Hamby's hand, so I'm going to go ahead and call on him first.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate your words there. And I was also
going to thank you for putting together this budget. I think you've put a lot of good stuff into this budget that does help the community move forward, and a lot of things that we do need to focus on. So your time and effort, especially during your time and effort in dealing with a pandemic and also putting together the budget, is appreciated, and certainly staff's time as well. I know we probably frustrate Manager Williams quite a bit on things like this, and to give him credit, he frustrates us too. So and there's also our finance department, and really every department in our county who adds to this budget and works hard to get it ready for us to review and for the public to review. And certainly Mayor Pro Tem Edwards did a fine job of leading these WebEx meetings during these budget discussions, and that was not a easy task. I know I've done the Mayor Pro Tem job before. I'm not going to do it ever again. Especially, I would never do it ever again if we have to have these WebEx meetings in doing it. So, with that said, I'd also, like Mayor Gertz has mentioned, the diverse thoughts that we received from the public have helped, and suggestions have helped shape this conversation. So it's very much appreciated. And so, in order to look at the budget, Mayor touched on this. I've seen over the years budgets formed, and we are able to get things in and not able to afford things, and that's understandable. It's like any budget that anybody has to put together. So we don't always get what we want, but hopefully we put in the budget what the community needs and how we can grow as a community and grow as a community together. So with that said, Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. And my motion is going to be that we adopt the FY21 budget as laid out with A and all the numbers under A, but I want to draw specific attention to attachment 6, which is on page 51 of 52. So, Mayor, within your budget, the commission decided, and you were part of these discussions as well, to take it a bit further and trying to help us meet some of the community needs that you did a good job of outlaying, but we wanted to add some more in here to help us move a bit further with this. So as part of the budget on Amendment 6, we've included $430,000 for health, mental health, and social service enhancement. This will include an additional mental health co-responder team for the police department. We already have 2, I believe it is, so this adds a third, so we'll cover a 24-hour period for mental health co-responder teams for our police department. This also includes a public defender, so in our public defender's office, a social worker for them to have at their disposal and to help with their efforts. This budget Amendment 6 also includes an expenditure of $400,000 to build strong youth opportunities. We don't know how that will look just yet, but we expect that we've done some good, strong youth opportunities in the past with great promise partnerships with the youth build programs, and hopefully those can continue and be expanded. But also, let's look at what the mayor has brought up as far as helping do some activities around middle-aged school kids from that standpoint. And also, we discussed during our budget hearings about program in DeKalb that DeKalb County is doing with their youth development. So anyway, the details and all that could get worked out. The other is a $350,000 for public safety and community building that looks at police strategies, and the details of that can be forthcoming as well. That will also, I would imagine, include a community task force at some point in time. $100,000 for minority employee recruitment program. Minority purchasing officer is $80,000. Public defender's office, we increased the pay and operating expenses so that they match our DA's office. An urban renewal impact committee, an Athens Equity Citizens Committee, and within this budget, we also are able to add an additional 0.125 mils to the mayor's 0.125 mils. That brings brings a millage rate reduction for folks here in Athens to 0.25 mils. The thing I will say about the budget, we're certainly in the pandemic, and I know there's probably some things that we'll have to address in the coming year, and we need to be nimble and able to do that within this budget. And I think Mayor and staff have put together a budget that enables us to do this. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to accept this budget with the specific changes that I laid out here for you in Amendment 6. So that is a motion, Mayor Kurtz.
I second it.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Thornton. Other input on the budget. See Commissioner Link. And you're muted, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you for Commissioner Hamby for laying out some of these projects and programs and positions that have come forward through our budget talks. This budget was dropped, I believe, back in April. So we've been at it for a couple months, and we've had multiple online public meetings discussing these things. I understand there has been an effort just in the past couple of days from some citizens requesting us to delay this budget and to incorporate some public feedback that's been collected by an outside entity. I just want to say that I support a people's budget and a public budgeting process. And I hope that next year, in the fall, when we begin these budget talks, that we can incorporate that kind of process. But it's certainly far too late to even think about that right now. We've worked on this budget really, really hard. We've already delayed it 3 weeks. And if we were to delay it anymore, it means additional overtime for our staff, probably canceled vacations for our staff. It also means losing out on some grant funding, and if we were to roll over that operating budget, there's a lot and there's a lot of good stuff in this budget that actually will move us forward towards some of the goals that those folks who are calling for this delay actually hope to achieve. We've had a lot of discussion about police funding needs and about needs in our community, social service needs, mental health needs, youth development needs, and we're beginning to get there with this budget. We were able to reallocate funding within this budget to the tune of almost $1.5 million to meet those needs. And I really look forward to the mayor appointing this public safety and community building task force that reflects a true diversity of our community and a new, novel approach to public safety in Athens. And so we can really, really think hard about how we do public safety and the role of the police in our community and what the additional needs are in our community, especially when it comes to things like mental health and decriminalization of certain behaviors and getting help to people rather than putting them in jail. So I think we're making huge strides. And I look forward to us making even bigger strides next year. So thanks to everybody for all your input.
Thanks, Commissioner. See Commissioner Parker. I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, cool. I also want to give a shout out to the People's Budget Athens, who have been organizing really intensely over the last 2 weeks. And to respond to some comments made about meeting community needs, I've been working very diligently in collaboration with many constituents and experts across the state of Georgia on the 50-10 plan for weeks now, while recognizing that a plan that embraces that general goal still doesn't address the fact that we use $5 million of unpaid inmate labor in our community, which is immoral. And, that we should create a participatory budgeting process to bring the community in to question what we do with our collective resources. I think it's clear from what I've heard some of y'all say that we are not prepared to postpone the current budget vote to create that process this year with the new fiscal year starting in 6 days. But it can be an excuse for not moving ahead and ensuring a participatory process in place for the next budgeting process. So I recall, I think Tim reminded me that we were supposed to have a presentation on participatory budgeting back in March, but the pandemic canceled that. So I'd like to go ahead and formally ask the mayor to put participatory budgeting on as a main agenda item for the next commission work session.
Mayor?
Commissioner Thornton?
Yes.
No.
I'm glad that.
I wasn't done yet.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was pausing to see if we could get the mayor's commitment to start the process of participatory budgeting earlier than September of next year, given the momentum that it's been around that in the recent weeks.
I'll certainly have staff bring forward what they had provided or what they would have provided for March if that's available. We do need to begin the planning for the coming fiscal year and refine a lot of this work. And so we'll definitely have that at least embedded in September.
Okay. So moving on, if I could really quickly, I'd like to share with you some results from the People's Budget Athens work thus far. They've knocked on hundreds of doors and made just as many phone calls and collected about 1,300 surveys from people in all 10 districts in the last 8 days. And I would like to show you what that survey looks like. Okay, can you see?
Got it.
Yeah, so this is the People's Budget Athens survey. It asks you if you're an Athens-Clarke County resident. It allows you to identify what district you live in. And then it gives you a scale from 0 to 4. 0 being take money away from this item, 4 being the maximum investment possible, with categories of food security, economic assistance, public health and healthcare, child and youth development, and environmental justice and climate change, community care work, restorative justice models, mental health and wellness, community investment in neighborhood empowerment, parks and recreation, public transportation, libraries, public works, fire department, policing, city attorney's office, parking enforcement, and then a short answer section for additional feedback that people have. So how do I get back to, this is the first time I've shared on WebEx. I don't know how to stop sharing. Okay, great. So all this has been collected, 1,300 survey responses in 8 days. And they had 129 respondents from District 1, 113 respondents from District 2, 231 respondents in District 3. District 4 had 162 respondents. District 5 had 120 respondents. District 6 had 86. District 7, 86. District 8, 125. District 9, 132. And District 10 had 85 respondents. Now, in this data, the top priorities for investment are public health and childcare, as well as child and youth development. And the top priorities for divestment are parking enforcement and police department. So to dig deeper into this, 94% of respondees' top desires were investment in public health, and 92% wanted to prioritize food security. 86% wanted to prioritize divestment from policing, and 84% wanted to prioritize divestment from parking enforcement. And I think their ability to collect such broad public input in such a short period of time models for us what we absolutely have to do moving forward. But it also dispels the myth that people in our community don't value divestment from policing. If 86% of 1,300 people's highest priority was divesting from policing, that means that 1,100 people in Athens expressed support for that goal. It means 110 people in District 1 support divestment from policing, 198 people in District 3, 140 people in District 4, 74 people in District 6, 75 people in District 7, 107 people in District 8, 113 people in District 9, and 73 people in District 10. So if you all feel you've had more people than these numbers here reach out to you to express the opposite, feel free to say so. But I think this data bears out that divestment from policing is in fact a popular concept in our community. And this is in addition to many thousands of emails we received calling to slash the ACCB budget and the overwhelming number of people who showed up at our work session in support of budget reallocation. I say all
Commissioner Parker's connection went dead for a moment. I'm going to move over to Commissioner Thornton, but I'm going to come back to Commissioner Parker as soon as she comes back online. Go ahead, Commissioner Thornton.
I kind of was hoping that Commissioner Parker would hear this, but I'll go on. the citizens participatory budget was a plan from the prosperity package. That was where that was recommended. And of course, the COVID came in. I want to go on record. I do believe in the process. I think RFPs can be sometimes discriminatory, but this was not just a new concept because of right now the people's budget. We had already started working in that direction, and now I hope that the demonstration of a survey that is about 2 weeks old can give us a roadmap, because even with the numbers in District 9, that's a very, very small percentage of the voters in District 9. So I think that the fact that this survey did get that much information in 2 weeks, it is a good tool. It's a good mechanism to move forward. I wish we could have included things like registering people to vote at the same time we did these surveys. I wish we had engaged in the census when we engaged in these surveys. This thing is really big, but it takes all of us working together on this. So again, I commend everybody who worked on the people's budget. Maybe if we would have been advised on this earlier in the budget process, but definitely it's not too late to move forward. And even with some of our TSPLOST and almost like our Citizens Advisory Council on our SPLOST projects, I think we're moving forward. And I also want to say that this commission does not always agree, but I do believe that we're very proactive. I don't see a lot of other governments that are investing in people. And we are trying to invest in people. Most governments, and even in the past years of Athens-Clarke County, everything has been infrastructure and capital development. I think that we're coming together. Investing in people is a huge, huge thing that is being overlooked. But I do think that the tools that some of our community leaders are using are very valuable. But I would like, Mayor, when you put back, when we're talking about the citizens participatory budget, that you would put it back on the agenda for the Prosperity Package Committee, which we had already discussed.
Thanks, Commissioner. I want to bring Commissioner Parker back.
Hey, sorry about that.
Gods have now been our friend again.
I'm not sure what part I cut out at. Could someone tell me?
You had gone through the
breakdown
number of commission districts, and those who were interested in reallocation of policing funds from each.
Okay. So rather than go back through that, and I don't know what point in that I got cut off, but I will just reiterate, 86% of respondents' highest priority for divestment was from policing. And I know that we can't delay the budget, or a lot of us are very resistant to that. But I do think it's really important to honor this organizing that's been going on, honor the thousands of people that have marched in the streets, and the folks who have called their commissioner for the very first time to make their voices heard on this issue, and the thousands of people who have taken the survey, by including this as one of our goals for the Community Building and Public Safety Task Force now, as opposed to waiting longer to get more community input, which will be largely the same as what we've received so far. So I want to make a motion to add the goal of exploring options to shrink investments in armed police officers by 50% and transitioning those cost savings into a broader spectrum of public health and safety interventions, including but not limited to investments in social workers, restorative justice mediators, and mental health professionals over 10 years to the goals of this committee. And so I offer that as a substitute motion.
All right, so there's a main motion on the floor. Motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Thornton, substitute motion from Commissioner Parker, adding goal language to this. Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. the first thing I have is I think a couple of clarifying questions. That on the and first off, I'll go off and like this budget definitely has some great stuff, and I do think it's just been made stronger and better by the large amount of public interest and public input that we've gotten, and I support all the things said about us ensuring that we have participatory budgeting wrapped into our budget process moving forward, and that I think the next step in that would be definitely for us to go ahead and have that work session that the county manager's office has already started working on, that Commissioner Park and Commissioner Thornton have mentioned, and then kind of going from there. I did have a couple of clarifying questions that I wanted. So under the public safety and community building, where we have the $350,000, I see it has the public safety community communications liaison there, but then just the other items as $270,000. And I think obviously everybody here on this call, plus I think a lot of the public who might be watching, are very aware that we were previously talking about having a task force or a committee there to look at public safety and community building. But that is not explicitly laid out now. It just says other items. So I'm curious if that is still what we are assuming is involved in those other items, and if not, what we are thinking that it is. And so I'll leave that question there first, and I have another follow-up question.
I don't know if Commissioner Link or Commissioner Hamby, who were involved in assembling this list, want to respond to that question.
I could respond, Kelly.
Good,
Yes, Tim, correct. I see that task force as being under other items.
Okay, but being included there.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And so then, Mayor Gertz, I know as starting off this conversation here, you mentioned us going to these other processes later on to fill these things out, which again, I'm assuming is speaking of that task force under public safety and community building. And if so, I wonder if you can just give a little bit more idea of what we'll be discussing there, what we'll be tackling. I think we all know that there was definitely a variety of things that I think the community had as priorities they wanted to discuss there, including funding allocations when it comes to public safety, among many other things, including also just like militarization of police. Is the idea that we'd have that discussion as some kind of commission work session that we will then kind of solidify around those goals, or what are you seeing that a bit of a timeline, a little more clear a timeline and process?
So, Commissioner, in the last month, I did draft a set of 5 goals for commission consideration as part of this work, and they included investment in social supports broadly in the community. Secondly, and I'm writing from memory because I don't have them in front of me. Secondly, aiming for a reduction of 50% in violent and nonviolent crime over the coming 5 years. Believe a third was review of use of force policies to ensure greater safety for the public at large and for ACC employees. Another was to ensure demilitarization of our police force. And I apologize, there was a 5th in there that I just don't have off the top of my head.
Okay.
And so it would be those that would be embodied in the work that this $270,000 would support. And I would be interested in launching that working group this summer.
Okay, but not necessarily having it come back before the commission but basically having your office construct that and move forward?
I think there are probably 2 pieces of it. You know, there really is the kind of underlying goal set. And I will say one of the strategies for doing work in any sector that I learned from our colleague Crystal Coburn in the inclusion office is that often what you really need to do is say to yourself as an individual or as a body like this one, what is the thing that we want to create? what is the outcome we want for the community? What is the reality of living in Athens that we want to forge here? And for me, that is sort of, as I said, my introductory comments, a safer community for everybody and a more just community for everyone. And I would embody in that sense of justice that there would be no disparities in criminal justice system activity by race or by national origin or by identity. And I would also say that it's a healthy community. And one in which people can thrive. So those are the general goals. I think that's the general place where we all agree we want to be. Fleshing out how we get there is obviously something that's going to take continued discussion. I do want that to be full group discussion among the mayoral powers as they are is committee appointments. And so I would be glad to appoint a committee to achieve those goals that the full body wants to see, as best articulated by the 11 of us together. So my intent would be to be a collaborative one.
Okay, and thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that a bit. And I do want to point out there's a couple other things that were definitely, I think, priorities to a lot of people in the community that we were able to get into this budget, which I think are really great. Which is there's been a lot going on about trying to get our EMS services dispatch faster in a more transparent way. And I'm excited to see us move forward with our communications, ACCPD communications recommendation moving forward so that we can start actually doing that and actually being able to dispatch EMS or start the process to get there. I know it's going to take some time. It's going to take some work to get there, but starting that process so we can get that so that we can be dispatching EMS and ambulance emergency medical services faster to the constituents here in Athens-Clarke County. And so that people can feel more assured that whenever they're having a medical crisis that we're going to get there even faster. And I'm very excited to see us take a step forward with that. And also, as Mayor Gertz included in his proposed budget, taking the next step towards a transition to fare-free public transit, which I'm very excited about, with bringing on in fiscal year 21, bringing on fare-free, zero fare nights and weekends. So I'm very excited to see us take those steps. But I do agree, though, with Commissioner Parker that in those goals, I think that it's been expressed, and I think it's important for us to explore the explicit way that funds are allocated when it comes to public safety. So with that, I will go ahead and second Commissioner Parker's CDO language.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see Commissioner Edwards. You're muted, sir. There you go.
I think that's an old hand. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. It's getting tired hanging up there, my friend. All right. Other input. Let's see. Manager Williams, do you want to have some discussion of any of the items?
Well, just a clarification on the request on the participatory budgeting. And Commissioner Parker and y'all are correct. We did intend to bring that to you, a discussion. We actually wanted to bring some officials, both staff and hopefully an elected peer from Durham, North Carolina, which went through that process to sort of tell you what that was like. And I think that was intended to come to the budget goals and objectives, wrap up that we were supposed to do in March, as y'all have alluded to. I want to be clear, Commissioner Parker, you were asking the very next work session. That's coming up in 2 weeks. And that might be a little quick for our guest. We'd love for you to meet them. Assistant Manager Edwards worked with them, and what he's shown me, I think, would be of great interest to you and the public. And so, we'll try to get them perhaps for the July 14th. As you know, we have 2 work sessions in July. It could be August if it's better for their schedule. I just want to put those out there just so we can meet your expectations.
Thank you, Manager Williams. Any other input on the budget? All right, so I'm going to have Assistant Attorney Hawkins read the ordinances associated with the budget. I believe there are two of them. For the public, one of the things that's unique to this year is that we do have a consolidated sheet of fees. That's a new element too. So, Attorney Hawkins, if you want to go ahead and read those ordinances, that'd be great.
Certainly. An ordinance to provide for the raising of revenues and the appropriation of funds for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia for the fiscal year 2021 beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. To provide for the operations of government departments, boards, agencies, elected offices, and other governmental activities. To provide for the level of personnel authorized for various departments and agencies. To provide for a capital budget. To establish 2020 property tax rates. To establish compensation for the charter officers. To establish rates and structure of fiscal year 2021 health insurance programs. To establish fees and charges. To repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide effective dates, and for other purposes. That's the first ordinance. The second ordinance is this: an ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to adoption of fees and charges schedule and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Hawkins. All right, so we have on the floor a substitute motion from Commissioner Parker with a second from Commissioner Denson with the numbers embodied in the agenda item, along with the goal language articulated by Commissioner Parker. So if Clerk Spratlin, you could go ahead and do a roll call.
Parker,
Here. Nope. Yes.
Link, Commissioner Link,
We didn't hear you, Melissa.
Yes.
Wright,
No.
Denson,
Yes.
Edwards,
No.
Harrod,
No.
Thornton,
No.
Hamby,
No.
Davenport,
No.
3 yes, 6 no.
Okay. We then return to the original motion. Madam Clerk, do I have to have the attorney reread the ordinance language?
I wouldn't think so. I think once is enough.
Okay. All right. And I believe that motion was from Commissioner Hamby. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I believe the second was from Commissioner Thornton. All right. Roll call beginning with Commissioner Hamby.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Parker,
Sorry.
Parker,
No.
Link,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Denson,
No.
Edwards,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Thornton.
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no.
All right. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your work. It is ongoing. I did realize that I neglected to have the attorney read the budget ordinance that was associated with the first agenda item. So I have to have Attorney Hawkins read that, and we're going to affirm our vote on that first item. So Attorney Hawkins, could you read that budget ordinance for me, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend the FY20 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for pedestrian safety improvements and for other purposes.
All right. Thank you. And once again, all in favor of approving item number 1, the TSPLOST 2018 project?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right. Again, the motion carries. I appreciate your indulgence there in helping me get my legalese correct. I just have one additional item. And Manager Williams, are we still going to have an executive session this evening?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Okay. So no executive session tonight, but I do want to read into the record that we are going to be launching our first Athens Justice and Memory project, which involves the Linentown neighborhood of Athens. The charge to this group is to work with Linentown residents, historians, economists, and other stakeholders to atone for the removal of the Lindentown neighborhood for the benefit of those residents and their descendants, while providing a model process for coming projects with other residents whose neighborhoods were similarly removed and destroyed, or whose lives were diminished in quality through the efforts of the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government or its predecessors, the City of Athens and Clarke County. And as noted here, this is the first of what is anticipated to be several projects in the same frame of memory and justice. The work of this group should include outreach to former residents and their descendants to the greatest extent possible to participate in this work, acknowledgement and apology for wrongs in the form of formal site markers, recommendations for a Black History Center, education efforts for the public at large, and other means as may be appropriate. Research and archival work to include a document repository, oral histories, and commissioning of narrative histories. Means of atonement for today and tomorrow's Athenians, including enhancement of local efforts toward housing equity, efforts against displacement, and means of wealth building for Black Athenians, and invitation to other partners, including state and federal offices whose support would bolster these efforts. Membership of this committee includes Bobby Crook, a former Lindentown community member, Addie Thomas Whitehead, another former Lindentown member, Geneva Johnson Blassingame, another former Lindentown resident, Freddie Brown Jackson, again, a Lindentown community member, Christine Davis Johnson, another Lindentown community member, Dr. Jennifer Rice, Dr. Barbara McCaskill, Charlene Marsh, Commissioner Mike Hamby, Commissioner Mariah Parker, and a seat for a University System of Georgia representative. Support will be from myself in my office, the ACC Attorney's Office, and the ACC Manager and/or designee. So I wanted to read that into the record. And Clerk Spratlin has a copy of this if anybody needs one, and I'll email it to everybody as well. All right. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner Davenport, second from Commissioner Wright. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody, for your work in 56 minutes. You have done the work. We are
It's a
adjourned.
record. Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.